Hello and welcome back to London Cycle Routes. Today I'll be showing you how to cycle from Peckham in South London to nearby Kennington. This ride takes under 20 minutes and you can do the whole thing on quiet streets and protected cycle lanes. By public transport, the same journey takes over half an hour, so you can save a bit of time by getting on your bike for this one. If you find this video useful or you just enjoy watching it, then please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, as I try to post new videos just like it every week. I'd also like to say a big thank you to everyone who supports the channel on Patreon. If you'd like to contribute as well, then you can find a link in the description below the video. Alright, let's get going. So we're starting at the north end of Rye Lane and we're going to use this toucan crossing to cross Peckham High Street. We then head into Peckham Library Square, making sure that we go down the ramp and not the steps. Sounds obvious, but it is an easy mistake to make at night when it's a bit dark. Now you could follow the arrow pointing down that street to Cycleway 35, which is a signposted route going down quiet back streets. But we're actually going to stay on the Surrey Canal Walk here, which is a nice, completely traffic-free path shared with pedestrians. It does get a little bit narrow in places, especially when people are walking 3 or 4 abreast, so do just make sure that you're courteous as you cycle down here, don't go too quickly, and give everyone plenty of space. The path is nicely lit. You can see that there are street lights all the way along it, so you shouldn't have any problem coming down here at night. It is also 24 hours and doesn't have a closing time, unlike some other parks. For those that don't know, the Surrey Canal path actually used to be a real canal and was filled in the 1970s. It used to run all the way up to the Surrey docks on the River Thames, which you might know better as Surrey Quays, which is where the overground station is. If you look at this bridge here, there is a clue to the fact it used to be a canal. That is obviously an old canal bridge which used to carry a road over the waterway. From the vantage point of 2024, it does look like a strange decision to fill in the canal, given the popularity of other canals in London like the Regent's Canal and Grand Union Canal, and the fact that people tend to like living in sort of waterside apartments. But if you think back to the 1970s, these canals were very different places. They were generally polluted, had stuff dumped in them, and also were probably considered places that you maybe didn't want to go walking alone at night. Whether it was the right or wrong decision to fill it in, we now have that great walking and cycling path which takes us all the way from Peckham into Burgess Park here, which was also actually part of a canal and also industrial land and was created in the latter part of the 20th century. I love Burgess Park. I think it's a real gem and it does give a lot of much needed green space to this part of inner South London. Just like the Surrey Canal Walk, it is open 24 hours, although as you can see there are fewer streetlights here, so not everybody might like to cycle through here at night. Although it is quite open and I've cycled through here in the dark and personally didn't have any problems. There's another clue to the history of the canal here just looming above us. It's a bridge to nowhere which used to go over the canal when this part of Burgess Park was a basin for the canal system. Now if you don't like cycling through the park and you'd rather stay on streets, you can use St George's Way, which runs parallel to this path on the south side of the park, just to our left there. Southwark Council recently installed a modal filter on that, so it is nice and quiet and doesn't have very much traffic on it. The only issue is that it only goes along the first half of the park, it doesn't come through to this side, and the crossing connecting it to here isn't very good, so maybe that's something that the council should think about improving. Now if you look on our right here, you'll see a small brick structure. That's actually an old lime burning kiln which was used to produce bricks for the area when it was being developed. Personally, I really like to see bits of old industrial heritage like that around here. It just makes the trip interesting. Now if you look on the ground here, you'll see it says Q7. That's actually our queue to leave the park. There are quite a lot of paths here and it can be difficult to remember which one to go down. Even if you have seen the video or cycled it yourself, that Q7 is your wayfinding to get through to Portland Street here. Q7 stands for Quiet Way 7, and that was the name of this signed cycle route which we're currently on. It's since been rebranded as Cycleway 17, and so you'll also see C17 written on the ground. I think that the wayfinding in Burgess Park actually needs a bit of a refresh, as it is really easy to miss that turn. There's only a really small subtle Q7 written on the ground, and unless you know what to look out for, it's actually quite difficult to remember which path to go down. So that would be a cheap, good way of improving this cycle route. Portland Street is reasonably quiet. You can see here that there are a few cars. I think this is pretty typical. You're not likely to see much fast moving traffic or heavy traffic, but it's not completely traffic free, and it does have a little bit of through traffic on it as well. It is worth stopping at East Street Market here, by the way, to get something to eat or drink. It's a great market and probably nowhere near as famous as it deserves to be. Southwark Council are working on plans to extend the nearby Walworth low traffic neighbourhood to cover this street and other streets in the area. It's at an early stage and they haven't actually got through to consultation yet, but I hope that we will see some plans later this year, as that is already a really busy cycle route, especially on weekday mornings when a lot of people use it to get in from South London to Central London, and it would do a lot to improve it and just make it suitable for everyone, as there is still a little bit of traffic on there. Talking of the Walworth low traffic neighbourhood, we've actually entered it now, and Southwark's recently rebuilt one of the filters here. I really like the design here. It almost looks like you're on a cycle track. It's sort of a two-way cycle track. You get your own little crossing here and your signal to cross Walworth Road and go into Manor Place, which is also part of a low traffic neighbourhood. As a result, there's no through traffic on these streets and they're always really nice and quiet, and it's a really great cycling environment. I think Walworth is probably one of the least controversial low traffic neighbourhoods that I've seen in the whole of London. I don't think I've ever heard anyone complain about it at all, despite the fact it's absolutely massive and has a really positive effect on the area in terms of quietening down streets. It really always is this quiet, even at peak time on a weekday. One of the reasons it's quiet is due to this bus gate coming up ahead. You can see here that you're allowed to cycle through it and local buses can pass through it as well, but it cuts off a key driving route through these streets. Now, as we turn onto Braganza Street, keep an eye out on the right for a military installation. Yes, it's the Braganza Street Drill Hall. It's actually an army centre. It's kind of a strange place to find a military installation, but yeah, that is one there. Braganza Street, by the way, is named after a small city in Portugal called Braganza with a population of around 35,000, so it's not a big place. Now, as we turn into DeLorme Street, I'm effectively undertaken by a child on a motorbike. It's of course an e-bike, and I think e-bikes are actually great things and a big part of the future of transport. I do have some concerns about ones with throttles on though, as they do seem to be effectively just motorbikes. There's not even really anything fundamentally wrong with motorbikes actually, it's just that we do have existing regulations where you have to pass a test to use them and meet other conditions like not be a child, and I think some of that might have actually got a bit lost. To be clear, I'm not suggesting that you should have to pass a test to ride an e-bike. What I'm actually worried about is the opposite, that if these things that are effectively motorbikes become the norm, then there will actually be pressure on the government to require people to pass a test to ride an e-bike or to register them with number plates, even if it's just a less powerful e-bike with pedal assist on it like most e-bikes are. I would be interested to hear people's views on e-bikes, so do let me know in the comments what you think of the situation. Now, Methley Street and Bowden Street that we're on here is one way for cars, but it does have two-way cycling on it. You can see it said accept cycles at the beginning. This bit here, Cleaver Street, however, doesn't have two-way cycling on it. Despite being a cycle route, strangely, there are cycle symbols on the ground. and also a cycle crossing on the right here just out of shot. So I do think that that's actually an oversight, and Lambeth Council should definitely come round with a sign and put accept cycles on Cleaver Street as well. But anyway, we have actually made it to Kennington Cross, which I think is probably the centre of Kennington, and we came from Peckham. You can see the route we've done here. I think it's a pretty comfortable route, makes use of those traffic-free paths, makes use of those new LTNs, and yeah, it's I think one that anybody could do. You could extend this route further south down towards Peckham Rye just by going on Rye Lane. Rye Lane is mostly buses only, so perfectly comfortable to cycle on, although the section just south of where we started is a little bit narrow and going in one direction southbound, I believe. There is a contraflow cycle lane, but it's a bit hairy and mixes with the pavement. It's not the most pleasant thing to ride on, so I excluded it from this video, but you can do that and get south all the way to Peckham Rye Park and Peckham Rye Common if you wish to. Southwark is also planning on building some protected tracks along the northeastern side of Peckham Rye Common, which should help extend this route all the way down to places like Catford, which I hope to bring you in a future video when they've built that infrastructure. In the meantime, make sure you hit subscribe if you haven't already. Give the video a like if you enjoyed it to help other people find it. And thanks again to everyone who supports the channel on Patreon. And if anyone else would like to contribute too, then you can find a link in the description below the video. Do let me know in the comments what you think, including about the question of throttled e-bikes, and I will see you guys again next time.